Welcome to Stitchery Stories, where textile artists share their life in fabric and thread, inspiration, techniques, disasters and delights. And I'm Susan Weeks, enthusiastic embroiderer and textile art dabbler who also loves podcasting. So take a break and enjoy our light-hearted chat, and please share with your friends so they can enjoy it too.
Hello. Announcing Stitchery Courses, a brilliant new place to easily find experts who teach classes and courses in all things using thread, fabric and yarn. Covering mostly topics around embroidery and textile art at the moment, but this list will keep growing as I extend the reach and grow Stitchery Courses. Simply visit stitcherycourses.com and browse or search the fabulous teachers who are already listed. Check out their profile and information. It's easy to message them on the platform or click through to their website and you book and buy a class or a course or a workshop directly with them. You can also keep up to date with info and offers from all the experts through the newsletter, and also watch out for the fabulous supplier guide, which is coming soon. And if you teach your art, craft or skills with thread, fabric and yarn, then don't miss out and come and get listed on Stitchery Courses and attract new people into your business. stitcherycourses.com. I'll see you over there. Hello and welcome today to our lovely guest, Sally McCollin. Hi, Sally.
Hello.
Right, brilliant to speak to you today, Sally. I've really been looking forward to having a chat with Sally because I met Sally through mutually supporting the Embroiderers Guild courses. So I've been dying to have a good old chat with Sally. So here we are. A little bit of a story here, so it gives you a good idea of Sally's really interesting career, which is what I want to focus on today. Sally McCollin. Sally started getting involved in crafts at a young age, having been taught by her mother how to use the sewing machine to make her own clothes. And so for pocket money, she used to knit mohair jumpers and sell soft toys to her school and college friends.
That's right.
I used to do similar, actually. I think lots of people have done that, haven't they? Sally started working professionally within the textiles industry in the mid-1980s, firstly for Knitmaster UK, then more extensively for Patons and Baldwins Limited, which is now Kurt's Crafts UK. Here she concentrated on the commercial, publishing side of the crafts industry, designing and writing the knitting patterns for Patons and Jaeger, then moving on to PR role within the company. Here she liaised with a variety of magazines and websites to provide editorial features and projects, whilst also teaching part-time on an evening. Subsequently, the teaching started to take priority, so she decided to become a freelance designer to give her more flexibility with both roles. At the same time, she became actively involved with the Embroiderers Guild at committee level, where she was regional coordinator for the young embroiderers and as an enthusiastic branch member. Through this commitment, she was approached to develop a series of unique, standalone distance learning courses for the Guild, which is how the Inspired to Create courses came about. Using her specialist knowledge and foreign language skills, she has more recently provided translations and digital artwork for European suppliers. And before retiring, Sally delivered a variety of talks and workshops within the textile industry, both in the UK and abroad, covering all manner of textile-based disciplines. And Sally lives in Teesdale, a beautiful part of County Durham, the northeast of England, where she's now concentrating on working through the stash that she's accumulated over the past 30 years. She's a keen walker and musician and has recently rediscovered her cello, playing in an orchestra and a string ensemble. Marvellous. Thank you for that story, Sally. That's a really great intro to lots of things that I'm sure we'll find to talk about today. And normally at this point, I'm flapping that I have forgot to give people's links. Well, uniquely in this instance, we don't have any links.
We don't have any.
So Sally has retired professionally and has decommissioned a website and is not busy on social media for professional things. So there aren't any links. What I will do, though, is we will be talking about the Embroiderers Guild courses, and so the link for that, because that's the only place where you'll find Sally, because Sally helps me in supporting that, and that's courses.embroiderersguild.com. So that's Sally's one little bit of remaining professionalism, isn't it? Or
It's the only one.
Professional work, should I say. Right, brilliant. So, Sally, having said that you are retired and busy trying to get through your accumulated staff and working for textile companies and Kurt's Crafts, etc., I should imagine you've got a monstrous stash of things.
I did, because also when I had Stitchery, I had an online web shop as well. So I've still got some stock left from that, even though I've given a lot of it away to schools and colleges. Yes, I've got rid of one double cupboard full, and I've still got another 3 to work through.
Oh, my word.
And then I'll get my dining room back. Yeah.
Your dining room was your studio, was it?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
So then, Sally, having said all that, and your kind of little intro there today, do you want to share with us what you are working on for yourself, and possibly what's got you excited about what you're working on? Because I know that you are very busy with your textiles.
Well, I love doing shibori. So I've just received some fabric because my husband wants a silk shirt for Christmas. I made one for him for a wedding in summer, and he decided he'd like a long-sleeved one. But I've only just got the fabric, so my job today after this is actually to start doing the stitching work on it to gather it up so that I can then dye it. Ooh. So that's start of today's project. Yeah. And I can only do that while he's out at golf because he doesn't know I'm doing it.
Right.
So I'm against the clock with this one, which is a bit like working for editorials, actually, because that was always against the clock as well.
Exactly. You'll just have to, are you going to go and play more golf and get rid of him? Yeah. He'll wonder what you're up to, though, won't he?
Yes, I just sent him out to play.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm also working on a piece. I actually did some transfer dyeing or transfer printing for one of the courses, the third courses. I actually really enjoyed doing the samples for that. I just love colour anyway.
Yeah.
That's the only sample really, or the only samples I've actually taken to use for something myself that hasn't been to go towards something else.
Yeah.
Because I still have bare walls because all my other stuff that I've worked on, it's all been commissioned. It's not been something just for me.
Yes.
So this is now something that I'm just doing for me as an ongoing sort of pick it up as and when sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm working on that. Yeah. And then I've just been approached by a group in Scotland to help to work with them. They're going to be working on some new banners for the Archers Hall.
Right.
So that's still in planning stages.
Yeah.
So that's something that's going to be quite a long project.
Yeah. Community projects like that do take a while, don't they? Particularly the planning aspects. And then it's like, okay, hands to the pump now and let's get on with it. So, so that'll be keeping you busy in 2025 then, won't it, Sally?
It certainly will, yes, because you're again working with people who don't know the constraints of fabrics and threads and what you can and can't do. Yeah. So that's the planning stage at the moment is the most in-depth, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Right, brilliant. So now you mentioned there you followed that classic path of getting interested in embroidery, sewing, textile art, crafts from that good old way of your mum teaching you how to do it. And
definitely.
And the other good old way of like, oh, well, I'll make a few things and see if I can sell them.
Yes, inspired by the fact that I could earn some money from them.
It always makes me laugh when people talking about knitting mohair jumpers because my mum is a brilliant knitter. I'm kind of rubbish. It's not something I really enjoy, but I remember, Sally has actually now got this beautiful, it's like a lacy, one of those lacy cobwebby kind of style. Yeah, it's lovely. When I was a student, I did knit I had at least 2 or 3. One was like sparkly turquoise, another was bright yellow, which didn't suit me at all. But it was like some wool I'd got from a jumble sale, do you know what I mean? So you just used it, didn't you? And put a grey stripe, I looked like a bloody bee in it. It was horrendous. Full of holes because I was rubbish at knitting. My mum wasn't there to rescue me when I was a student.
Well, when I was at college, it was sort of the punk era as well. So lots of my
Exactly.
friends wanted mohair sweaters too. So I made quite a bit of money at art college.
And it didn't matter if there was holes in it either, because that was the whole point.
No, yes, and it was odd pins as when you used a big needle and a little needle. Yeah. And then by the end of the evening, your sleeves were dragging on the floor because they'd stretched that far.
Oh, I'm sure there's lots of people here going, yeah, we were there too. Fabulous. So what was it though that was the kind of catalyst to going from your mum taught you and you were interested in like selling stuff to actually going to work professionally and choosing that path? What was the particular catalyst for that, Sally?
It's a bit of a roundabout route, actually.
All the best things are.
Yes. At the time, because I actually did photography and print at college rather than textiles. Oh. But when I came out of college, I went to work for a camera shop and giving like darkroom advice and stuff.
Yeah.
And I had my own darkroom at the time as well. But I used to still go into a shop round the corner and buy wool and what have you.
Yeah.
They were having a delivery from Patons and Baldwins, and it was this guy called George who used to do the local deliveries, and he was the chauffeur for the directors, etc. And we just got talking, and he said, "Oh, did you realise that there's an outlet that are wanting designers or in the design department or such?" And so I eventually sort of thought about it. I didn't go for it there and then because I had no experience. Thought they're not going to want me as a knitwear designer because I didn't do that at college. Yeah. And I ended up instead going to this new shop that had opened by Knitmaster in Darlington.
Right.
And I went to work for them. So that taught me how to giving demonstrations and working in the shop.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was only there for about a year or two. And then I met George again, and he kept saying, "Look, they've got another. They're still wanting design." Yes, he said, "Why don't you apply?" So I did, and that was it. Yeah. So I wasn't pushed into it, but I was sort of reticent.
Sort of almost dragged, one could say.
Yeah.
What a lovely story. Oh, I love that. and then never looked back, I suppose.
No, that opened my eyes. They had such a fantastic showroom there.
Yeah.
Because I was never, at the time, I wasn't really interested in embroidery. I was more into making garments, so like knitting and sewing, like dressmaking. Because my mum did corsetry and stuff at college, so she taught us really well how to do dressmaking.
All right.
Yeah. And then I saw at the showroom, they had all these wonderful, like, banks of threads.
Yeah.
And yes, it was just like a sweet shop, really.
Yeah. Wow. So is that how you then got interested in embroidery, or did that come later?
Yeah, it's sort of, well, a bit later, because I did the knitwear for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And then Patons and Baldwins, which then became Coates Crafts, that sort of different satellite areas, they were sort of merging together. There was Coates Fayella, and it kept changing its name.
Yeah.
They bought like Too Tall and Rowan and what have you. Then the crafts side came down from Scotland. I think it was based in Paisley. Yeah, with the anchor mills.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
So that came down to our department, so that all of the design was based in Darlington, in our design department. And then over the next 3 or 4 years, people left and things changed. And there was an opening for a design and PR. And at the time, it was Alistair McMinn who'd come down from Scotland, who'd taken over the department. So I went to work for him.
Right.
And working with the thread part, because by then I'd sort of got into doing embroidery and have you. And so then it was more old editorial work. So it was more into the PR side of it and trying to get our products into magazines, doing the trade shows, doing the consumer shows and the embroiderers guilds and, talks, workshops and demos and things like that. So it's sort of the more commercial side.
So that must have been a really fascinating time, though, Sally. So much variation with what you were doing then, so much opportunity to contribute. Yeah.
Yes, because at the time also knitwear, they sort of go in cycles.
Yes.
Trends, and it was sort of a downtrend. But embroidery was sort of, and patchwork and quilting and everything to do with that sort of the stitchery, the thread side was actually on the up.
Right.
So it actually worked really well for me.
Right.
And of course, at that time, I'd started with the demos, and sort of getting to doing more on the teaching side.
Right. So was it doing the demos on like the trade stands at shows, presumably things like Knitting the Stitching show and stuff? Did that then get you and think, oh, do you know, I like doing this? And did that then give you the entry into more teaching? Is that how it worked?
That's kind of how it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both of my parents were teachers.
Ah, right.
So the last thing I ever wanted to do was be a teacher. Yeah.
Well, you were a teacher of fun things, though, weren't you?
Yeah,
and not in a school, yeah.
Not in a school, gosh, no. But I actually enjoyed doing it.
Yeah.
So I started back in 1985 when I was still working for Knitmaster, and I was taking an evening class then in knitting. But that was just like one evening a week. But of course, with doing what I was doing with coats, crafts, as it was then, as it became.
Yeah.
I was asked to do more and more teaching. And, you know, I was really enjoying it. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. And so, I mean, the other thing that normally I ask people about their favourite techniques, but I know from working with you with the courses, wow, there's such a range of techniques that you've brought in there. You know, when you were creating the courses, what was your inspiration for creating those, and who were you thinking about? I think they're quite unique in the fact that you've got the design side in there and those practical skills, you know, and then you kind of swap between the two. So what was kind of going through your mind when you were developing those and thinking about techniques?
Well, I was approached by Terry Murphy and Muriel Campbell at the time to talk about what we could do to develop these courses.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was teaching the City Guilds, but I was the one that was teaching the art and design modules.
Right.
Nobody else wanted to do those. Yeah, didn't really want to do them. They preferred the practical, the textile side.
Right.
Whereas I quite like gluing and sticking and colouring in. And
it's absolute such fun.
You sort of pretend you've got a 5-year-old sitting next to you. 90% of it is play anyway. When you're designing, you're just fiddling and twiddling with things.
Yeah.
And I used to really enjoy doing that. And my mum was an infant teacher, so it was just sort of what we used to do with mum quite a bit. Yeah. And I thought, actually, that to be an independent designer, you really need to have some of the fundamental art and design skills.
Yes.
Certainly design skills. I mean, I wouldn't class myself as an artist. I can't particularly draw very well or anything, but
that doesn't matter, does it?
No,
that's what we keep trying to say to people. It doesn't matter if you can't draw. You can cut out bits of paper and you can start to develop an image or a theme. So
Yes. So my take on it was to say, if we do something like this, we need to have the design element as a strong factor.
Yeah.
And then sort of whatever we're doing in the art or in the design element, we can then sort of respond with some textile bits so that then they can see how they work together.
Yeah.
And just do them in sort of almost like baby steps so that anyone who's never done any design work at all or artwork or any sort of craft like that side isn't going to be fazed by or overfaced and just feel this isn't for me, I can't do this. It's got to be very visual, very simple, very well explained and very much step by step, but done in a way that it's almost as if I'm standing in front of them, telling them what to do or looking over the shoulder saying, why don't you try this? Why don't you do this? What would happen if you do this, that or the other?
Yeah.
So to try and get some individuality into them as well.
Yeah.
Keep the thought processes going.
Yes, exactly. So I've actually working through so you structured it so there was like the taster course, which does what it says on the tin. You know, it's like a little peek into, you know, what it's like to do one of these courses. And then then we've got 3 levels after that. And I'm doing the foundations in machine embroidery. So the other unique thing I think about this is that you can go down the hand embroidery path or you can go down the machine embroidery path. So I've chosen, since I'm supporting these in terms of students, Sally supports them in terms of technique and design because she wrote the courses. But I really like the way in which, there's got those two paths. And I really love the way that it's the bit of design and then how do you respond with that in textiles. So it is very much like, oh, let's get some bits of paper out and start sticking and gluing, or try, messing around with this thing, or get some pipe cleaners out or fuzzy sticks as they call it now. And, and it is really super enjoyable. And people on the courses all say the same thing. They think, oh, I wasn't a bit sure, thinking, oh, what am I going to do with these bits of paper and stuff? But
yes, it's like, what's the point of it?
What's the point? But the point is, it's getting that creative juice going and just trying things out without getting bogged down with a technique of some fabric and thread and, oh, I might do it wrong kind of thing. So
yes, but if it does go wrong, it's a case of asking, never mind whether it goes wrong or not, it doesn't matter. But then you have to ask yourself, why did it go wrong? And what would I do what could I do to improve it? Or what would work better than this? It's about asking questions.
Exactly.
And it's testing processes and techniques and materials. So it's all about what works, what doesn't work, so that you have a good understanding. And sometimes quite a lot of time, that will help you when you come to doing a project, because you think, well, I tried this with such and such. And if you can go back through your files, think, well, it didn't work with that thread, or it didn't work with that fabric. But what if I try it with this one? Because that seemed to have a better result. And it helps you to discard what doesn't work, but then you can develop and concentrate more on what does work and take that further.
Yeah, no, I love that approach. And we say it went wrong. Really, it didn't go wrong. What happened was the result wasn't what was in your head.
That's the thing. Yes.
Who's to say it wasn't wrong? It just wasn't what you thought you might create. But as you say, and the thing I love about the approach you took when you were developing this, Sally, is all of the little samples. Because I'm a bit of a lazy so-and-so. And like, if I think, oh, I'm going to do this thing, I get this idea in my head and I start. And I know I shouldn't, but I just start, right? And so this idea of doing the samples, you're not trying to make a thing. It's like, I'm just going to try this idea and I'm going to try this other idea and I'm going to try that. And I love doing that, because for me, it means I've got some output. I've achieved something. Woohoo. Exactly. I've sat down one afternoon and I've got this little pile of these things that I enjoyed doing, rather than some project that sits in a bag and every now and again I might get out because I don't really have a lot of time. So, I've just I love the way in which you've brought the kind of common sense, real life approach to how people actually do things. Built that as the structure of your course. So,
and you can do it in your own time, and you can go to whatever depth you want to. Yeah. And just if there's something that really inspires you, a certain process, or whether it's fabric dyeing, like for me, I absolutely love getting my hands in the fabric dyes and playing with shibori. I've got loads of fabric that I don't know what I'll ever do with. I probably have to give it to charity or something. But it's just playing, and it's just keeping me focused, I suppose. Just doing something creative. But that's sort of how it starts, and you just run with it. But then when I was teaching at college, you had to follow such a prescriptive set of samples and things. I thought, I want to break completely away from that, because that's all very well. But when I've been to do other guild day, workshop days, people say, "Oh well, we didn't do this at City and Guilds, or you don't do it like this." Oh my goodness, that's not what City and Guilds was about. City and Guilds was supposed to help you to explore as much as possible, but they because of it being so prescription, saying exactly what samples, and it was like a tick list of you have to have these samples. But it didn't give you time. If a student said, "Oh, I really love doing this," but the next week you had to get on to the next lot.
You were on to the next thing.
So they never really got a chance to go further down that route, because you had to do all the other things instead. And you had to make how many projects as well.
Yeah, as that. Tick those boxes. Right. Yes, I can see now why what you've created is the complete opposite of that, to meet a completely different need.
Freedom. You've got freedom to take it as far as you want. And if there's one bit that you don't want to do, well, you don't do it. You don't have to do it. I'm not going to tell you off.
That's it. And so everybody, when we've got an online portal, so my role was bringing all these courses and putting them back online again in an online course portal. And then if people want to ask questions, then they can upload an image and they can write a question, and then Sally gets pinged and she'll come and reply. And I have to say, Sally's replies are brilliant, as you can tell from her enthusiasm. They're so uplifting, and it's very much a case of, well, you could try this, and what about this? And you've done a smashing job with that. And people are so conditioned, I think, to, oh, I've done it wrong.
That's exactly it. Yes,
I've done it wrong,
and it's not wrong. It's just different.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And if we all put our samples together from the first session, they'd all be completely different.
They are. When I ask people, do you want to just share some images with us? It's just like, it's so inspiring just to see what everybody else has created, because you're not. Yes. When you're in a room and there's always somebody who's like really fast, isn't there? And it's like, and they're doing all this stuff, and then it almost puts everybody else off. Oh, I'm not as good as that.
Yeah, or someone says, oh, that looks really good. And you look at yours.
I don't know what to do because I can't think of anything. Yeah. And so I think doing it in your own time really helps you to get all of those silly little voices out of our head, isn't it? So.
Yes. And you're not comparing yourself with anybody else.
Yeah,
so,
yes.
That's so true.
So you mentioned there about like you really love fabric dyeing. So is that pretty much then out of all of the techniques, and you've done so many, is the one that really stands out that you absolutely love?
Well, I do love the fabric dyeing. I also still love knitting, but freestyle embroidery, where you can just doodle. You can just, if I want to just sit, watch telly or something, I don't need to really think about it. You can just play with the needle and thread, and that's why I'm doing that sample with all the coloured transfer paint on it.
Right. Yes.
I can just sit, I literally sat just wrapping lolly sticks and things.
That's it. There's wrapped lolly sticks and all sorts going on. So that's one of the images that Sally shared with us.
Yeah. So I'm building that up, and I've got some little washers that I'm also wrapping with coloured thread. So it's going to be, that's just the foundation that you can see so far.
Yeah.
I'm just building up. And it's literally just whichever thread I pick up, that's the one I'm going to use. So I'm making sure that there's no real thought process, apart from the fact that I've chosen lots of colourful threads to work with it.
Yes, exactly. I quite like to do that, just kind of mindlessly, like, oh, this one, right, okay, off I go, kind of thing. So, Now, you mentioned right pretty much at the start about deadlines. So obviously you were working with magazines and when you were on that kind of publishing side of things.
Yes.
So I'm sure most of that must have been quite fraught. Have you got any kind of standout stories for us about working in that arena?
Yeah, definitely. Yes. There's quite a few times where I've had to take something on holiday because they've brought a deadline forward or something. So I did stitch a panel for my weekly project, and it was a cushion panel. And then I was sitting on the beach. It was actually very nice because I was in the Caribbean, but sitting on the beach stitching this. And it was absolutely hacky because I had sun cream and sand and all sorts of stuff on it. So I had to have a thorough wash before I could send it. But it had to be sent literally the week I got back, or the days after I got back. So I knew I had to have the panel finished to make it up into a cushion. Luckily, I was stitching on linen, so at least I could wash it.
It was all like focused on washing it, get all the gunge out of it.
Yes, it was lovely and bright by the time I'd washed it. But so that, again, working to a deadline. And then, sometimes things didn't go right. So I did the Millennium cover for Classic Stitches, which is another that I've sent. Usually there was a brief, or I'd go to visit the editor and say, show them samples of threads and things. Anyway, their brief literally was just popping the cork on a champagne bottle.
Yeah.
That was it. So I've got the background fabric. I sent them a few ideas of kind of what I was looking at. And the actual thing itself, the stitch piece, is quite dimensional. It's probably sits about maybe 12 centimetres out of the fabric.
Oh, right, yeah.
Which you don't really get on the magazine cover.
You've got an image of that as well, haven't you? Yeah.
Yeah, but while I was stitching it, because that obviously had to go, they had a deadline for that because it obviously has to go on the presses.
Yeah.
So anyway, I sent the sample up. And anyway, when they sent it back, it's part stitched. And she said, "Oh, we've got a bit of a problem. They've changed the format, the layout format. So the header, they needed more space at the top.
Yeah.
So when the champagne bottle was further down, you couldn't see the writing properly. So where I've got classic stitches across as the bottle's coming diagonally across, all you could see was classic tit. That just sums it up, really. So, so they said, "Oh, do you think you could move the bottle further round towards the centre a bit more?" And I thought, well, the cork alone, and you can see from it that it's not, the cork now isn't centrally sort of coming out of the bottle.
Yeah.
But I'd ordered some horsehair to stuff that with, and it just never came. So I'd had to pad it with, there were 16 layers of felt on it, and my fingers were like, so sore. Yeah, even with a needle puller and a pair of pliers, stitching through all these felt layers. So I thought, well, I'm not moving the cork.
No.
So I thought I'll just have to try and cover it a bit more with more wires and beads. But the bottle isn't symmetrical either, because I sort of had to shift the body of it round a bit, because there was also 6 layers of felt under the bottle. So it was a bit of a codge up, really.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, thank you for that behind the scenes glimpse there. With it being the Millennium cover as well, it's like,
yes.
pressure on, wasn't there? Crikey.
Oh, gosh, yes. I mean, by the time I got it back, I literally had about 3 or 4 days again to get it sent back.
Well, I don't know if that was a highlight, but it's like, it was damn funny anyway.
Oh, dear.
And with all of that, then, so in terms of a highlight, I mean, I personally think the courses that you created are absolutely amazing, and I've thoroughly enjoyed supporting people through them, and I know you support, you enjoy supporting people through them as well. So, is there anything else that sticks out as being a real true highlight of that really varied career there, Sally?
It's actually, when I was working in knitwear, it was nice to see people, you'd actually see someone wearing one of your designs.
Wearing your designs, yes.
Yes. Yeah. Or you'd see them hanging up in a shop or whatever, in the shop window. So that's nice. But also getting front covers. I've had quite a few front covers.
Yeah.
So that's always a bit of a bonus, because you never know whether yours is going to be on the front cover or not.
Right. Yes.
Until you see the magazine.
Yeah.
There was only that Millennium one that was a commission specifically as the front cover.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, actually, no, it wasn't. There was another one for their 100th edition.
Yeah.
But then they stopped it at issue number 97. So although and that was a great big cake with loads of candles and stuff. Again, a very dimensional piece.
Yeah.
So I did it, but it never got published.
It never saw the light of day. Oh.
No. But it's nice to see when people get enthusiastic. I think that's why the teaching was so nice. And these courses, I think, they're the most long-term thing I've ever worked on. That was quite an achievement. It was going to be just one course to start with, but then we thought, well, why don't we do one for machine embroidery as well? Because that's up and coming. So we did the two. And then, of course, they said, well, why don't we do some that are going a bit further and then a bit further? So, and then the taster course, why don't we do a taster course so that people can see what's happening?
Yeah, exactly.
And so, because the taster course also is exactly the same format, so there's no nasty surprises or anything.
That's exactly it. And I've got several people who are working on the highest level. It's not really levels as such, but I guess people do tend to think of them like that. But
a bit more in depth.
It is a bit more in depth. You cover things in different ways, in a bit more in depth, but it's not about, oh, well, I've done fly stitch before, I don't want to do it. It's how you apply things, there's much more dimensional work. And we've had quite a lot of the people who are working through the courses will say, well, crikey, I've been doing textile art and embroidery for years. I've done tons of courses. I've done City and Guilds and, nearly killed me and other things. But they're still finding a massive amount of enjoyment and value and fun out of the way in which those courses were structured, and the fact that you can play and go off on as many tangents as you want. And so people from beginners are inspired, and people who've been doing this for years are also thoroughly enjoying, the work you created. So that really was a massive achievement, I think, for anyone's career. And I think combined with your working on the commercial side, you've really had I think, an absolutely fascinating career, which is why I wanted to talk to you today, Sally.
Thank you.
So kind of moving on, we've got a couple of minutes left with my new self-imposed deadlines. So really, I asked people about future plans and projects. Obviously, you're working on a shirt for your husband and, popping in and out with the courses. Is there anything else? And you've got your banner thing to look forward to.
Yes. I was contemplating, when I first started in publishing at Patons and Baldwins, all our artwork was created by artists. So you had lovely artwork that had brush strokes and texture. And then come the 80s, like early 90s, when computers were taking over and everything was computer generated, it's all gone a bit flat.
Right,
it's not, like flood fills where it's all so even and you don't get, the lines that you get when you have some, like a watercolour and it's dried and then it goes over. And I kind of missed that. So, and like looking through some of the children's books, like with our grandchildren and my great niece and nephew, a lot of the books, the pictures are quite flat. So I was thinking of just looking at making a book or something, maybe self-publishing it. But having something that's just got some texture in it, I don't know. Anyway, that's still sort of in the planning stages.
It's mulling in the background, isn't it? Yeah, a book project, brilliant. So we'll have to keep our eyes open for that then, won't we, Sally? Because what with the cello and everything else, you have to try and fit that in, won't you?
Somewhere, yes.
Well, Sally, it's been really brilliant to have that whistle-stop tour of your career and how you've taken all of the different facets of it, brought it together and really focused on teaching and inspiring people through a load of different media. So it's been wonderful talking to you, and thank you so much for your time today, Sally.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's been brilliant.
If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, then please join the Stitchery Stories fan club so you can get an email when a new episode is released. It's a quick and easy way of listening and of keeping up with any news and information around this podcast. Please visit stitcherystories.com. Of course, you can listen to Stitchery Stories on plenty of podcast apps at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify and plenty more besides. You can also ask your smart speaker to play Stitchery Stories podcast too. But wherever you listen, why not leave us a rating and a review to encourage other people to listen too? I very much appreciate you taking the time to do that for me. So that is the end of our Stitchery story for today. Keep stitching, keep smiling, and keep creating your very own Stitchery stories.